Shalom, Shavua Tov. Here we are in Meron at the end of a Shabbat with Rebbe Shimon Yochai. And it's like you have to say goodbye to the tzaddik. And you say, well, the man died 2,000 years ago. How are we saying goodbye? But remember, when we're talking to above time, there's no time. And we feel that there's an invitation to get here. Many times we've tried to get here and we weren't able to. We got here and it was a wonderful Shabbat with family and friends, eating outside under the stars and a cool evening breeze. And, we had this sensation of not knowing exactly what was happening with the hostages because they were released right when we were taking in Shabbat. So that was an interesting timing issue, but we're not going to delve into that too much because right now we're just going to talk a moment about Shabbat itself, and Rabbi Shimon Yochai is Shabbat. See, the tzaddik is the person who reveals the inner soul. And just like Shabbat reveals the inner soul of the universe and the will of Hashem, that the world has a system, and the system works on a 6-day cycle, and the 7th day we rest. So too man has a system within the universe, and we work 6 days, and we take the last day off. And so there's this idea that Shabbat rests itself. How does a day rest? Like, what does that mean? The sun stops turning, the earth stands still for a day? No, of course not. It means that there's a level of energy that is different. You feel it in the air, you feel it in yourself. You feel the lack of pressure, the lack of needing to do something, to go somewhere, to be something, to pursue the pursuit of work itself, the idea of acquiring things, of checking into the news, of turning on the phone. All of that is just suddenly disappears. Now that's the power of Shabbat. That's what resting is, where the mind no longer has to consider itself with the weekday events. And so here we are in Motzei Shabbat after the day, and all of a sudden the world starts crowding in. As much as you're willing to let, it's going to come. And so we have this idea of keeping an extra hour onto Shabbat in order to keep back that leap into the busy world. Because we're not really from this world. We're visitors in this world, however many years we're given, how many ever years we're needed, and then we leave this world. And that's a sobering idea. But what it does is actually gives more meaning to being here, more meaning to what we do. And so Shabbat is the demarcation between the above world and the lower world, between the inner self and the outer self. And the tzaddik, he is the person whose life has become like a Shabbat. That to touch the tzaddik, his words, his Torah, his prayers, and there are so many words and Torahs and prayers of Rebbe Shimon Yochai that could never end. Pursuing them in your life, but he embodied that idea. He spent 13 years in a cave because he was running away from the Romans, and all he did was learn and pray. And he was visited by Eliyahu Navi, and visited by Moshe Rabbeinu, and other souls would come in to listen. It says even the angels would come to listen to his Torah. And what that all means and how do we describe that? We can give it words, or we can leave it to the imagination. But needless to say, most of it took place in the pathways of the mind. It says in Tikkun Zohar that there are angels that travel the pathways of the mind. And if our pathways are clear enough, we can know they're there. So there has to be some brainwashing, right? The good kind, and the kind that leaves your own sense of listening to yourself so deep. When something inside you is reaching from outside, inside, to communicate to us. And this is the beginning of an idea that we cover in many of our classes and meditations when it comes to praying and meditating and hearing the inner voice of the higher soul. So I bless you all with that here. Whoa.